will turn them off over there. There, YouTube. What does it say over here? Setting up your meeting. Done.
There we go.
Okay.
On
So I
record.
guess I will say shalom to everyone and turn this off so we don't get the.
Let me blow my nose. All
Yes,
right.
we are real live here. Yes, I'm here, Gidon Ariel of Root Source, with my good friend Pastor Alan Latta from Granbury. Well, remind me of the name of your church.
Generations Church.
Gener- Generations Church. Can you see over here how it says Gidon Ariel dash Root Source?
I do. I
So you
do.
should do the same thing, man.
Okay. All right. I'll do that. I'll figure that out.
So it's all marketing. What can I say?
Here we go.
How are you?
Doing well. Doing well. Had
It's
a
been a while. What's new?
had a hatch, match, and dispatch week.
Hatch, match, and dispatch.
Yeah, that's a pastor joke. Uh,
Okay,
di-
so it's a
dispatch
joke I haven't heard.
a dispatch was a funeral on uh, Saturday afternoon.
I got it. I got it.
And a match was a wedding yesterday evening, and the hatch was four baptisms yesterday morning. Anyway,
Okay, but those baptisms were of children or of adults?
they were children. Yeah, they and we also will do a blessing of the baby. We call it parent-child dedication, and that's part of the hatching. Anyway, so yeah, a little spin on words there, hatch, match, and dispatch.
I
So
love it. I love it. And of course, Jews do that. Rabbis do that also.
yes, they do. The hatch, match, and dispatch.
The hatch is the
Circumcision.
brit, the circumcision, which one of my rabbis, he just had a baby boy last night, so we're going to see that next week. I hope I'll be able to get to it.
Yes.
It's on the eighth day usually, if the baby is healthy. Matches, there's weddings all the time. I don't know if we spoke in more than a month because my daughter got married about a month ago,
Okay. Great.
and dispatches. Thank God I haven't. I can't think of one. I actually there was a soldier who he wasn't killed in battle, but he died while he was in the army. So
Oh,
he got a military funeral at the military cemetery in Jerusalem. He
okay.
was the brother-in-law, the brother of a neighbor of ours.
Yeah.
So a few of us went to it. I was able to go to it, so I went to it. So
So
I
you've got
guess
the
I,
hatch,
I,
match,
I
and
keep that in
dispatch.
mind.
Yeah, birth of a grandbaby or something. So if an adult converts to Judaism, does he go through the mikvah?
He goes
That
through the
be like a
mikvah, and he also goes through the circumcision,
yes, yes. Well,
which
so many Gentiles are already circumcised that that part may not happen, but
I understand. I'm not too knowledgeable about this, but from what I understand, there is something called hatafat dam brit. So
okay.
brit means circumcision, dam means blood, and hatafa means something like to do so. I don't know exactly what the word means, but that's the phrase.
Okay.
Basically, I think they just prick you, and then you get a little bit of blood, and that's good enough.
Okay, so the blood is drawn then.
Yeah, drawing, I guess, is hatafa.
Part of the hatching. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not. I don't
Got
like
to
to talk
make the
about this kind of
metaphor
stuff
work
too
here.
much.
We'll push it till it fits in the template, right? Yeah.
But the matching part, my daughter, somebody matched her up with this young man, and they ultimately got married last month.
There you go.
I think she's 22 and he's 24, I think, something
Okay.
like that. And he is an officer in the IDF command, one of the commando units.
Okay.
So he is busy at work now. So I'm happy that he's joined our family WhatsApp group. So from time to time, he posts something there. And if I feel like mentioning something to him, I do. But most of the time, when I think about him, I'm wondering if he's just sitting twirling his thumbs or actually doing something.
Well, if he's twiddling his thumbs, he better enjoy the break because it won't be forever, right?
Exactly, exactly. No, they don't like twiddling their thumbs, and they don't really twiddle their thumbs. When they're not in an actual operation, then they're preparing for one.
Yes.
And when it's time for an actual operation, then they probably have a day or two to prepare for it, and then they do it.
Yes. The armies of old would build fortifications and sharpen their swords, spears, and arrows.
Yeah, they do something like that. They're sharpening their
Sharpening their
swords, spears,
skills.
and arrows. Mm.
Yeah, sharpening their skills.
And so how are things going by you, sir? Besides your matching and your hatching?
Doing well. I had the honor of praying the opening prayer for the 89th legislature last Monday. That's why I had to cancel in Austin at the Texas State Senate. So that was an honor.
I believe that you mentioned that, and you sent me what you
Oh,
wrote.
yes, yes. Yeah. So that was an honor. So,
So I will, if we manage, hopefully tomorrow I will. Tomorrow on Tuesdays, we send out our weekly newsletter,
okay.
and you and I meet once a month on Mondays usually, and
Yes.
I meet with other people on alternate Mondays. So I tell the person who puts together our newsletter we are going to have a meeting with somebody, so hopefully we'll be able to get it ready in time for sending out the newsletter.
Yes.
So I will include, if I may, the text of your blessing of the legislature so that people can read it.
Thank you so much.
Why not? It fills up the content.
So they told me a paragraph, don't alienate other faiths, and keep it to a minute. Well, I sent them a paragraph that was loaded, as you can see. And as I read each line, I may add a couple of other lines of my own from my heart. And by the time I was done, it was almost 3 minutes, but no one noticed because their heads were bowed and they're tracking with the Lord's Prayer. So
Wow.
anyway,
How
so
many people were there? How many people were
it
in the
was
hall?
it was the senators. I'm not sure that they were all were present, but I think Texas has 26 senators, maybe. I should know that. Yeah, anyway.
And were there, and I guess there were various employees and various people, maybe guests. Your wife
Clerks and stuff. People can sit up in the balcony. There was a handful of people up there.
was
Um,
your wife one of them?
she was, yes, yes. They let her sit on the floor. Uh,
Ooh.
yeah, anyway, so it was,
They let her sit on the floor. Couldn't they give her a chair for
well,
God's sakes?
the main floor. Yeah, the floor of the Senate chambers. I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a topic to hit on if you want to.
Sure, let's go. Let me
This,
let me just check what's going on with me today. I have a lot of meetings back to back, but let's see if we got. Yeah, I got another one back to back at the half past, so we got about 20 minutes.
okay. So this morning I read an article by a friend of mine. He's like one of my favorite Bible teachers, a former missionary to Papua New Guinea. And it was on the story of Saul visiting the witch of Endor.
Just 1 second. What is the name of your friend from Papua New Guinea?
His name is, he's no longer there. He's based here in the city, but he was a missionary there for years. He lived
That
amongst the people, learned their language, and taught the Bible.
that's fascinating. I first of all, I had an old friend whose name is. It's been a while since I've been in touch with him. I really should try to see if I can find him. His name was Victor Schlatter, and I think he lived in Papua New Guinea for a long, 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 long time. And he wrote a few books, and he was a very, very pro-Israel, pro-Jewish Christian. I think he wrote books about how Christians must support Israel or that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so your friend from Papua New Guinea might know him. Victor is his name.
Maybe.
Victor Schlatter, I remember.
Yeah, he's from the
And
Midwest, but he now lives in Texas. But yeah, maybe he knows him. I'll send him a link to this talk and he'll let me know.
and
Yeah.
you're and when you say missionary to Papua New Guinea, I was friends with a fellow whose brother wrote this book called Peace Child. It was
Oh,
evidently a
yes, I
well-known
read
book.
that. That's an amazing book. Yes.
An amazing story. So that and I have another friend actually from from Texas, from north of north of Dallas, whose daughter is going or went to ministry school or missionary school, whatever it is, and her the plan is that she's going to go to the mission to some unchurched, unbibled people group. I think that's what they call it, something people group,
Wow.
unchurched maybe, I don't know, or unreached maybe, I don't know.
Yes.
Now, some people surprisingly include Jews in the unreached people group because they're not Christians.
Yes.
I mean, for God's sakes. But we're talking about people like in this Peace Child, and I don't know, in Papua New Guinea maybe, and that's what I think. And she said, "I'm dedicating my life to the Lord. I might get married, but I might not. But I'm going to live my life for until God calls me away from it in this non-people group, and I'm going to learn their language. And I'm going to be their friend. It's going to be years and years and years before I even start talking to them about Jesus."
You
Just
have to learn the language.
fascinating.
Yeah. Unreached people group are people that have never heard of the Bible. That's my understanding of it.
Mamash. Crazy.
Yeah. So there's an amazing story on YouTube called E. Tao. And it's a story of what this guy did. He moved and lived amongst an unreached people group, learned
This
their
is your
language.
friend. This is your friend.
This wasn't my friend. He lived
Okay.
amongst them, but this particular video, as he was learning the language, he built a very makeshift amphitheater. And once he was able to communicate, he invited the people to story time every afternoon, and he taught world geography.
And that took years until he
Yes,
felt
yes, took years, took years. Took world geography, and once they got a grasp of where they were in the world, then he could bring Israel into the picture, and he taught the First Testament, and then
so it was
second.
before he even got to Jesus, he was talking about the First Testament.
Yes, yeah, you have to establish the baseline. I mean, the first church, the early church, the church in Acts didn't have the New Testament to preach
Of
from.
course.
So yeah, so it took years, and he was great fruit. Anyway, I won't run the story, but if you've got time, it's an interesting story. How
Tao,
you
send
do
me a
this.
link about that. I'll try to find it.
Um,
Let me peek it up. How do you spell the
E-
last? Is it two
it's
letters?
two E's and then a space, then Tao, I think. Anyway,
W. The Mauk Story, official video by Ethnos.
okay,
That's probably it.
yeah,
EETAOW.
OW, yes, okay,
All right, we'll check it out.
yeah. So he was relating, I didn't finish his article, but relating the story of Saul and the Witch of Endor to New Guinea, and that people will come to a place of faith in the scriptures and fearing God. But if things don't work out right for them, they'll fall back to their animism and consult the ancestors. And so there's a great parallel here. Saul was out of favor with God, so let's go consult with Samuel through the witch. And so I hadn't got to the end to know where he arrives at a conclusion, but it's so well done because he covers all the details of the story um, that a lot of people skip over. This is all, did Samuel speak or not? And they just focus on that, all the details of the story. Anyway, so I thought, I wonder what the Orthodox perspective is on this. So on this
Well,
story.
I've heard of that story.
Yes.
It's been a
First
while
Corinthians
since I've
28.
reviewed it. And it would seem to me that yes, yes or no, did Samuel speak? In other words, it would seem to me that from the Bible, it looks like he definitely spoke. And he said, "What are you waking me up for? You're not allowed to do this." But there is a rabbi, and you probably heard of him by the name of Moses Maimonides, Rambam. He
Okay.
was the most important rabbi in the past 2,000 years or so.
Okay.
He lived about 800 years ago, and tremendous, tremendous, tremendous. And he, amongst other things, he spoke out about issues of faith. As a matter of fact, you might have heard that there are 13 principles of faith in the standard Jewish faith building, whatever you want to call it. And he's the one who came up with them. He didn't make them up. He based them on traditions before that. But he, I guess you could say, canonized them or codified these topics of faith. And my rabbi, where I studied, his name was Rabbi Rabinowitz. He passed away a few years ago. He was an expert on Rambam, on Maimonides. And one of the things that Maimonides was really into, and my rabbi was also, was rationalism. So he basically said that all of these irrational witches and demons and all sorts of things like that, they don't really exist. But if you believe in them, they exist. I think I got that right. So, and now, obviously, Rambam, Maimonides would have to come to terms with various passages in the Bible that seem to indicate that such irrational issues actually exist. So that's the way he would talk about it. Rambam is also very, very famous. He wrote a book called Moreh Nevuchim, The Guide for the Perplexed. You might have heard of that book. You might have heard of that phrase because it's a phrase that that other books have adopted in order to say this is going to be the guide for the perplexed for people who are trying to lose weight or something like that. Yeah, that kind of thing. But this was the original guide for the perplexed. And one of the topics that he talks about there at length is the personification, the humanization of God. That if you will, the
anthropomorphisms.
Corporalization of God.
Okay.
God, according to Maimonides and according to standard Jewish understanding, because Maimonides standardized it, said that God has no body. He is totally incorporeal. That's how it's pronounced.
Okay.
Now, of course, I could ask you about Christian understanding of that. Obviously, Jesus was a person, and so I guess God brought himself. I don't know. I don't really want to talk about Christianity right now, but that's the Jewish understanding of it. But you have so many phrases in the Bible that seem to indicate that God has a body. When God says, "I will lift up my mighty hand on the Red Sea," or "I will be angry and my nose will be fired, my nostrils," or whatever it's translated strangely into English. That's what's good about Hebrew. If you understand Hebrew, you don't have to translate it, so you can understand it not necessarily in the translated way. I mean, how do you translate that? V'chara afapi. In literal translation, it means my nostrils got fiery. I don't think about that. I don't think about that vision that when I hear that phrase. I think more about I got very angry. God got very angry. Which is hard enough to think about when you're thinking about God. Because anger is a negative, seems to be a negative trait. So why is God getting angry? Why does anybody get angry unless there's something missing in them? So those are the kind of things that the Rambam talks about.
Okay.
So that is the more famous thing that the Rambam talks about. But the other thing that he talks about is these demons and witches and stuff like that. Do they really do anything? So today there are not so much today. When I was a kid, more, and there's even a popular Israeli song about a guy who goes to a fortune teller. So you're not allowed to go to fortune tellers according to the Bible.
Right.
It says it right there. but the fact that the Torah is commanding against it means that some people have some sort of a yetzer, some sort of an inclination, some sort of a need to do it, which is what Samuel actually did.
Yeah.
Right? Saul, what Saul did.
Oh, Shaul.
So
Shaul.
Shaul. So that is my feeling about it. Again, I would love to go into all the depth of the details, like you mentioned, I've read through the entire Old Testament, and I might have even read through the entire New Testament, but I don't read through it enough. It's there are people that read through the Old Testament a chapter a day. It takes 929 days.
Yes.
Maybe now you're encouraging me to join
Yeah.
that 929 website. There's a website called 929.org, and it has dozens of people who give a commentary on that chapter of the day. And of course, there's an archive, so you can look at the dozens of commentaries on those chapters of the Old Testament. I highly recommend it.
Well, add a day if you take 2 days for Psalms 119.
You probably take more than just 2 days. But yeah,
So there are Christians that will read the Bible through every year by reading 5 chapters a day. That's all it takes. But they're loaded chapters, man, and I like to read till something speaks to me and then contemplate there, just stop there. And so what
there's a
my
little problem. You guys have it better than us,
Bible
because by you guys, I mean the guys who don't know Hebrew. Why is that? Because I think that I know Hebrew.
yeah.
Now, you know that you don't know Hebrew. So if you're going to read the Bible, it's going to be a translation, right? Of
Yeah.
course. Now, a good translator, he's translating for his audience. And a good presenter to his audience wants his audience to understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
So a good translator is going to make sure that you're going to be able to read the chapter and you'll understand it because of his translation. But there's a problem. And that problem is that so much of the original Hebrew Bible was written in a way to be cryptic.
Okay.
In other words, not easy to understand.
So a chapter a day is the most you can do.
So a chapter a day can be difficult. No. There are some chapters that are very easy to understand.
Okay.
There are some books that are pretty easy to understand. The book of Samuel, the book of Kings. These are stories that are pretty easy to understand. But once you get to some books, the three books that I'm thinking of are called Emet. Emet means truth. It's three letters: Aleph, Mem, Tav. They
Yes.
stand for Eov, Mishlei, and Tehillim. It's Job, Proverbs, and Psalms. So
Yes.
some of the Psalms are using Hebrew that are very difficult. And Job, forget it. It's
So,
very, very
so
difficult.
let me ask you a question about Emet. So truth is something God gives, right? He's aligned with truth. And it contains the first and last letter of the Hebrew alphabet.
And the middle
And
letter.
and I had to dig. They said mem is a middle letter. How in the world is that? It's a 13th letter, right? So here's what I discovered, and you tell me if it holds any water, that 5 of the Hebrew letters have a secondary formation. All right. So Kaf has a secondary formation, which if you look at them in sequence, um, Kaf is the 11th letter that would give it 11 and 12, and it would push Aleph to position 14 of the 27 formations of Hebrew letters. So it is the middle letter. So
It's the middle
Aleph,
letter without
Mem, Kaf.
it's the middle letter without those final formations. You push the final formations to the end. You don't count them when you're a
Yes.
kid. You learn when you're just learning Hebrew. Then you say Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Kaf Sofit, Mem, Mem
Greek,
Sofit, Nun, Nun Sofit.
right.
Final.
Greek has a secondary formation for sigma. If it's at the end of a sentence, it looks like an S. Otherwise,
Interesting.
oh, with a curlicue. But so the point being made by this teacher is Aleph Met Tav, and Mem being the middle letter. Um, God is the first, the last, and everything in between.
That's good.
That
And of
good?
course, that is the Alpha and the Omega that you translate, or you translate. Somebody translated into Greek, and
Yep.
Greek is what got the high billing. You know, they were around at the right time at the right time. But
Yes.
I think that of course he was talking about the Aleph and the Tav, which
Yes.
I think that there are
Yes.
some modern translations that prefer to translate with the Hebrew letter.
I think so. And then isn't there an Aleph and Tav between the first two words of the Hebrew Bible?
The
Bereshit,
first two
Aleph,
words of the
Tav.
first
It's
two
they're silent. They're there as pointers, right? Aleph,
the
Bereshit,
letters
Elohim.
the
Good.
letters are not silent, but the word is untranslatable
Oh, okay.
because because different languages
So,
they work
so,
differently.
so my question is, and I got to let you go because I know you got to go, is could they be there between the first two words of the Bible to let us know this isn't just any Elohim. This is the first and the last. Sounds good, right?
Yeah, I'll take it. It's a nice drush.
Yes.
But again, the word emet, you're talking about the God being the first and the last because God is truth. But the concept of truth is that it has very strong legs. It strands the beginning and the end very wide and also the middle. So it's really a very strong tripod. And
Wow.
every letter of Aleph, Mem, and Tav of that word, each one has two letters. Like the letter A has two legs, right? The capital letter A.
Okay.
But the letter I just has a line. So the word for sheker is shin kufresh. Each one of those letters only has one point. It's each letter is standing on one point, so very easily falling down.
Oh,
And the
wow.
letters shin kufresh, they are all together. They come next to each other. Kufresh shin in Hebrew are the second to last three letters. Tab is the last letter. So the sheker includes all of those last three letters in the alphabet all together, and so it's like on a seesaw. They're not balanced at all.
So even the shapes of the letters are poetic.
Very much so.
Have you heard much about ancient Chinese alphabets?
Not at all.
One of their figures for house and boat is it points to Noah, the Noah story.
Wild, wild.
Yeah, I'll send you it's a guy in Singapore speaking on the alphabet.
I wonder if it points to Noah's story or to one of the many ark and flood stories that exist in many
Oh, okay.
languages.
I had an unbeliever try to shoot down the Noah story. He said, you know, the Bible isn't the only version of that story. There's about 40 cultures that have that story. I said, well, think about it. If they happened, then they would have that story.
Okay. Well, we got to go now, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's a shame that I didn't think
Thank
to
you.
bring you in
Man, this
earlier.
has been a loaded 30 minutes, bro.
Okay, I'll see you hopefully in a month.
All right. Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Bye bye.